My name is Monk Rowe. I'm happy to have my guest Nicki Parrott here today, um, remotely, unfortunately, but I did think it was worth gathering some stories for the Fillius Jazz Archive about how musicians and artists are making out these days. And we've seen some very upbeat examples of how you're making out with your new online venture and really enjoying Shea Nikki jams.
Thank you. I'm so glad you are. I've had some really nice feedback from it because it feels like an escape, but it's also supporting a good cause, the World Central Kitchen, and they are needed right now. They're worldwide. They were helping in Australia when the bushfires were in Australia in January this year, and they're helping out during the pandemic. Countless meals every day. From helping to keep restaurants open, to cook the meals
Mhm.
to families. So that's nice. It's sort of it started because we were all here, and I haven't had a gig since March 12th. I think was the last gig. I cut a European tour short, and all three of us that are here. Andrew's here from my stepson's here from San Francisco. He works at Apple, so his stores are closed. So he has certain, technology, computer skills. Brian has audio recording, video skills, which he needs for his work. We're all working from home, and I'm here kind of playing, doing a little online teaching, and then but I've been cooking a lot. And it sort of started as a joke. Why don't you make pineapple pizza and we'll film it and then you play a song? I'm like, nah, that will never work. And so I thought, well, let's try it. If it's fun, we'll do it. And it was fun. We did one episode and we said, well, let's do it weekly for a while.
Yeah.
So we've committed to 6. We just filmed number 5. We've aired number 4. And then we'll promote it at a time that feels right, I think. You know what I mean? We'll do the 6, put them aside, and then figure out. We've raised some money. It's been a good cause, good charity, and we'll see what happens next with it. But it's fun and it puts all our skills to use. So it's been a good thing to do together.
Yeah, I have one suggestion with episode 4. You could have another subtitle like "How to Use the Electric Bass in the Kitchen." I wondered if that was
Yeah,
something.
my dad was angry at that. He said that was really stupid. I'm like, well, that's the point. We're not trying to take ourselves too seriously.
Right.
No, like I thought, oh, let's just grab the base and we'll pound the chicken. It was like, my husband looked at me, he said, no, you're not going to do that. I said, watch me, and I just did it. He said, and
Well,
he says, I don't know if we're going to use it. And I said, yeah, you will. And he did, because I give him sort of the choice of how to edit because it takes us, because there's 2 people doing the job of 10 here.
yeah,
We're trying to do multiple camera shoots, but it's only the 2 of us.
right.
And so we're trying to, what was I going to say? Figure out how to, so it takes so long. He has to do so much editing.
Yeah.
So, and he has good taste. So I leave all the editing and choices up to him. And
Right.
we try to edit down what ends up to be like 3 or 4 hours into under 15 minutes if possible.
Yeah. So you're a person who for years has played almost constantly, at least from what I see.
I I didn't realize that until the pandemic. Yes, I've played constantly for 32 years.
Yeah. Was there, sometimes you hear the term, I had an aha moment, and I wonder if you had an uh-oh moment when cancellations started to come in. Did they come all in at once or?
It was very stressful because I just started a tour. I started the tour on March 1st. And I was working January, February in the States. So, we did the jazz cruise, we came home, went to San Diego, came home, went to Florida, came home. So I had a pretty full January, February, and actually a pretty full year booked, some of the tours I do in Europe are organized 2 years in advance. So this particular one in March was 2 years in the making, which is a lot of phone calls, a lot of emails, a lot of work. Not necessarily for me, but for the European musicians who organized them. So it was going to be a very busy 5 weeks. But all great gigs. I was really looking forward to it. We got to about March. We got to my birthday, which was March 9th. And we had a little party. It was a night off. And we had a little party in Germany. And it was getting really strange then, because these are people I've known for at least 10 years. And they all wanted to hang out with me and have coffee and cake and just hang out. And it was just like, so weird, because I couldn't really be near them, and it was just a strange situation, you know, back in March. And then some gigs were canceling. Some gigs at the end of March were canceling, and I'm like, well, I'll probably go home sooner, but I don't know when. And then the Europe flight ban happened, which was a couple of days after my birthday, 3 days after birthday. So like March 12th, the Europe ban was announced, and Brian called me and said, you got to come home. And I said, I agree. So even though gigs next week and the week after weren't canceled, I canceled them, and they were not happy with me. In fact, some of the contracts, some of the promoters were actually saying, you owe us money. You know what I mean? You can't cancel out of this gig. Of course the gig canceled, but I was just a day ahead even, you know? And that felt bad, because I left certain band leaders and promoters in the lurch. I was on the phone for 3 hours to United trying to get a flight home. I got one via Heathrow, because I thought, well, they haven't banned in the UK yet. I can, you know, if I have to be overnight in the UK, I can still get home to the States. And so I got a flight on the Friday, which was the day after the Europe ban, you know, the day when it was going to get a lot harder, put it that way, to get back to the States. And I got one through Heathrow, and I got on the plane at Heathrow. It was packed. And the Brubeck brothers were on board, because they just finished a week at Ronnie Scott's. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, I believe that Dan had a brief episode with Corona that was not pleasant at all. So that was sad. But and so I was talking to Chris on the plane and his wife, and they canceled. That was a big year for them, because it was the 100th anniversary of Dave Brubeck, and they had a lot of work in Europe booked.
Yes.
Everything, and they were on the same flight.
We met them at the jazz convention in New Orleans, and they were doing the Brubeck thing.
Yeah, Chris Brubeck actually lives not far from here in Wilton, but I believe near where Dave lived, Dave Brubeck. Yeah. Super sweet guys, great guys.
You anticipated a question I was going to ask, and that is, most musicians were sitting waiting for the phone to ring, and the more it rang, we knew what was coming. Like, okay, this is canceled now, who's next? But I was going to ask if you had to initiate cancellations, and indeed you have quite a...
Yes, because, you know, as you know, family comes first. Mm-hmm. So not only I couldn't get back to Australia because I was worried, because I'd been on the road, and that's the worst situation for a virus like this. So I knew I couldn't go back to Australia right away, because then I wouldn't know how I would come back to Connecticut to be with my husband and stepson, you know. So I had my parents FaceTiming and said, you got to get out of Europe. You got to get out now. You got to go, you know. And I said, well, I have to go home, because I have to come here. And fortunately was able to get that flight. But it was very stressful, because I was also with two other American musicians, Paolo Alderighi, Stephanie Trick. We were doing some gigs together at the beginning of March. And they were also very stressed, because Paolo's parents were in Milan, but they couldn't get back to Milan because of Italy was in a very bad way at that stage. And Germany was looking bad. And of course, it hadn't really hit the US quite, you know what I mean, as bad as and you know, wasn't quite here yet, or it was quite here yet, but we didn't really know about it. And I just, that whole time was very stressful. But I'm glad I did the right thing. And actually, one of the promoters called the next day, canceled, and apologized for being so mad.
Yeah.
And I was glad in a way, you know. And um, of
Did,
course, the cancellations keep coming into November now. Uh, I just talked to a European promoter this morning. They said, "Oh, we might have you over for 2 weeks in September." I said, "Well, it has to be worth the airfare, and I have to know I can get there and come home back here." You know what I mean? So there's a lot more questions raised now about touring. I mean, I just used to get on a plane every other week like it was nothing, you know. Now I have to think about my family. Now I have to think about travel routing and are there going to be flights back? You know what I mean? And is the cost worth it if we're going to only have less people in the hall and do more concerts? You know, like eh, some of the concerts we're going to have to do two concerts instead of one, but get paid the same
oh,
as one. So there's a lot of complications yet. So I've just basically told him, I said, well, well, September is 3 months away. And of course I want to play. I love being on the road. I always have, you know, I enjoy being with musicians. I enjoy being on stage. I enjoy playing, but it has to feel right. And after that experience in March, I don't want to rush out uh, unless the circumstances are good.
do you feel responsible for the other musicians that you may be taking with you?
Um,
Maybe I didn't ask that right, but is it a consideration about what they want to do also?
Yeah, I mean, it's very weird because when you commit, you when you commit to a gig and sign a contract, um, you know, you never want to cancel. It's just it never feels right. I think a lot of the work in the fall, they're all European musicians. So, you know, one's from France, the other two are in Germany. It's just a matter of that's well, even that's aborted across from France to Germany. I don't know if if the musician there would be able to make it. And um, I've basically said to them, if I can't make it, just find a sub for me. Yes, but you sing and you play. I know. Well, make the bass player sing. I don't know. I can't help you on that end. But you know, the priority has to be safety first, family. You know, and not to rush into anything. I mean, there's so many unknowns about this virus still.
Right.
Second waves, third waves.
Do you have booked gigs with Rosano and Eddie? That,
Yeah, we had some.
yeah.
Yep, we had some in May. Nice concerts, a couple of nice concerts we were supposed to do in May in Florida. A couple of jazz parties and hopefully December in Bern, Switzerland. We'll see if Marion's in Bern is open up. That's a beautiful club. I hope that happens, you know.
What does it do to your identity as a, you, I mean,
That's the biggest question of all, isn't it? Because I've talked to a lot of musicians and, you know, it's the word reinvent is not an easy word when you've spent your whole life committed to learning a craft. Now just reinvent yourself, you know. uh, so yeah, it's various ways of coping, I think. You know what I mean? Depending on their financial situation too, you know. It's not easy to get unemployment. I found that out. You know, uh, there were several grants going around, but as it almost as quickly as they open up, they close up.
uh-huh,
There's so many people that need help, you know.
right.
So what does it do? Uh, Makes you focus on the prioritize different things. You know, I think At first, I resented the fact that I was the one going out shopping and cooking. And then I thought, well, I have a role to play here to keep the house running. And I happen to like it, and they like my food. So, you know, and all the rest of it. Um, you know, it's tough. It's a very personal question. Not easy. I certainly got depressed about 2 weeks in when everything was canceling, even into June, July. Yes, I got really depressed. And I had to reassess. I had to, you know, I have a little bit of savings. I have, you know what I mean? I have a supportive group around me. You know, I have a supportive family. I have a sister that's a musician. We talk all the time. Um, yeah. It hasn't been easy, but I think that the key to it is to stay creative. Which way stay
Some,
creative.
some people do very well when they have time to do other things.
Yeah, that's not me.
Not either. It's amazing how little you can do with so much time.
It's crazy, isn't it? I mean, I'm mad at myself that I don't have a great music library all set up. I don't, you know. It was one of the goals of and I have to get to it. You know what I mean? It's certain things you have to do. You know, you can't have piles of music around forever and think that you you can be organized that way. It's not, doesn't work. So I don't know when. Earlier in the year, Arbus Records and Venus Records both asked me to do a project, a recording project. That means writing arrangements. I've realized that I really don't work well without a goal, without a deadline. It's hard for me to work with it. I don't know what the first gig's going to be and who with, or the first series of gigs. So I almost sometimes don't know what to practice. It's crazy.
Yeah, I feel the same way.
You-
You know, I'd
Yeah.
be writing music for my college saxophone ensemble. Except
Yes.
I don't know if they're coming back yet.
Did my sister send that chart? I think I'll remind her if she didn't send the Waltzing Matilda chart.
Fun. So, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
With your online lessons, was this something you were doing before now?
No, I was teaching private. I have a student here. Um, I wasn't teaching Zoom. I did the occasional FaceTime lesson
Mhm.
from the road often. Uh, Never did the Zoom format before, never. And now yesterday I taught a student, and this was very interesting. I taught a student in Tokyo
Oh,
early in the morning because of the time difference.
it-
And he said, last night you would have been performing 400 meters up the street from here. And
wow.
that hit home. I was like, that's right. I was going to be in Japan. It was going to be a big pre-Olympics thing with an all-girl Japanese orchestra. And I was going to be the band leader.
Oh my.
And it was going to be really exciting because they put together this really cool thing with all these Japanese women. It was going to be really fun. Um, you know, Olympics canceled, of course, so the tour canceled, even though I think Japan is recovering quite well, actually, right now. And that was like, oh, that's right. Wow. Yeah. Well, thank you for having a lesson. You know, uh, so you get little odd things like that like, wow, that's right. Yeah, this is a different reality. We don't know what's coming out of this reality for musicians, you know what I mean? So online teaching and online forums like TrueFire and other mediums like that, that's where I'm going to get stuck into,
Mhm.
because that's what I need to be doing right now.
There was a week, um, I believe in near the end of March, where it seemed like every other day there was an obit.
That's right. Bucky Pizzarelli and Ruth Pizzarelli, and Wallace Roney and many others.
And it just seemed like whoa, why is this hitting these older musicians with such regularity? And I remember thinking, well, Bucky was not in great health. We had almost lost him like a couple of years ago.
That's right.
Somehow it just didn't seem fair
Mm.
that this took him.
It wasn't fair at all. No, I agree. The saddest thing of all, I get chills thinking about it now. That John and Martin and Mary and the whole family, I don't know for sure, but this disease was so awful that you couldn't be around your loved ones.
Yeah.
That is just, I can't even fathom that. I can't fathom that. And of course, Ruth going a week later, that's the saddest thing of all. It isn't fair. You know what I mean? I mean, he was such a survivor and such a wonderful guy. And I used to love driving him up to Hamilton, and I just used to love chatting with him.
Yes, we treasure those moments, I guess, maybe more than we did.
That's right. Of course. Absolutely. Yeah. Special guy.
Yes, indeed. Do you have an opinion about your local, state or federal government, how they've handled this?
Ooh.
Tough one.
It's a really big, tough one. And I know you can't compare to other countries, but I'm still waiting to hear back about unemployment. And of course the PPP, that all these other things, it didn't work for me. You know what I mean? I didn't have the necessary requirements for a lot of things here. Business accounts. Who knew you'd need a business account at your local bank? I mean, I didn't know all these things. So I can't say I'm impressed. Yes, it's been an awful time for a lot of people. Federally, I think the less I say, the better.
Do you think it's harder for you because I lost track if you're a citizen or not?
I became a citizen in January.
Oh, nice.
After 26 years here.
Mm-hmm.
So I definitely feel like I'm part of the fabric of the country. You know what I mean? I mean, I paid my taxes the first year, and I've always been legal, and I've always wanted to do things the right way here. And it was a beautiful ceremony in January. Very different time. Not so long ago, but a very different feeling in January. And there were, how many of us? I forgot the number of us now. About 55 or something at a court in Bridgeport. Was it Bridgeport? I think it was Bridgeport.
Okay.
And it was federal court, and we all turned up, all dressed up. And it was a very moving speech that the judge gave and handed our certificates. And the next day I went down to the passport expedite service in Stamford, and I got a passport in 2 hours. I could not believe it. And I was like, okay, that I'm impressed with. That impressed me. Because I said, I'm going on a jazz cruise next week. And I just became a US citizen, and I need a passport. And I said, by the way, I have to fly to North Carolina tonight for a jazz festival, and I'll be back on Monday. And they said, give me a minute. And they went away, and they came back. They said, can you come back at 12 o'clock today? I said, yes, my flight's not till 6. Absolutely. So I went away, had a cup of coffee, came back and got a passport. I couldn't believe it. I just became a citizen. And the next day I had a passport. I thought, well, this is too good to be true. Mm-hmm. So some things do work when they're supposed to work. And that was impressive, Whew. And I'm really glad because everything's been shut down since then. And my case was already delayed way longer than it should have been because of the amount that I traveled.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to get my local senator to contact immigration. And it was a process and a half to get there. So by the time we got to our ceremony, it was like, oh, thank goodness. It's done. I'm a citizen and I'm a dual citizen, and I'm really proud to be a dual citizen of both. I want to vote. I want to participate. I want all the things that every citizen of a country wants.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I think that things could have been handled way better. And I really hope that things don't escalate in this country and get out of control, and that the good people shine through. The majority of people in this country are very good. And I believe that, and I will still believe in that.
What are your parents in Australia? Do they make observations?
Oh, yes. The whole world does, don't they, about America? They
Yeah.
love to talk about America. The whole world, all the time. Europeans, they call me, they talk about America.
Oh,
My family calls, my aunts, my uncles, my cousins, everybody wants to talk about America right now. We are in the world focus right now. Mhm.
can you share what you're hearing?
Dissatisfaction with the president.
Mm-hmm.
They like to talk about that. Um, Fear about the next coming months, what it might bring, and uh, pain and anguish over the brutality of the George Floyd situation, the murder of this man, and and the consequences of that, and the protests, and a lot of fear. I think the whole world is looking at America with what's next,
Right.
um, and just hoping that we come out of this with some positivity and some leadership. We need leadership. That's what I feel. That's what's really lacking. There are segments of it. I feel like sometimes Andrew Cuomo in New York has done a good job at certain things. There are bits of good leadership. There are good cops shining through. There are people trying to lead the way and show positivity. We just need so much more of it.
Okay. Thanks for sharing that.
Well, it's a hard subject to talk about because it's just so sad.
Right.
You know.
Um, I'm trying to figure out how to phrase this question. I'll use my own experience, I guess, as an example. Most of the gigs I play, I have to move gear. I have to,
Yes.
you know, have a full-size digital keyboard and this and that I don't miss.
Me too. I have to say my back's been better.
Yeah. Do you think there could be things that you will reconsider even doing when hopefully we get back to normal?
Yes, I think I've found that I do need a better work-life balance. I wasn't handling that well. I think every musician struggles with this. Um, we don't like to say no.
Yes, a gig is a gig.
A gig is a gig. We like the routine of being busy and being on the road. We get addicted to it, and I was addicted to it. And I found that I do need more of a work-life balance. I'm not. I'm a long way from 30. You know what I mean? And you just don't think about things when you're younger. And now it's like, well, I can use time off to do more things here at home. You know what I mean? And so I do want to find that. I mean, we don't know what we're going back to. Um, and I certainly want to work on other things here. Getting back to the question. Sorry, I went way off the question. Yeah, that's the big takeaway for me is I need to be better at scheduling.
Mhm.
so that I am at home more between, especially big tours. 5, 6 weeks now. It sounds like a long time, and it was nothing for me. Go out for 5, 6 weeks, no problem.
Wow. And the fact that you mentioned that some tours abroad may book you 2 years in advance.
Yes.
So you have to like extrapolate. Do I want to do that in 2 years? And it's almost impossible to say.
Yeah, it is impossible to say. Except that's how a lot of the European promoters do things, and they want you every other year. It's more annuals over here. Over here, it's been more annual gigs, annual parties, annual things.
Mm-hmm.
But it doesn't mean you can't go to Europe. You have to go. You have to go to Europe with Band A every other two, and then in the in-between years you're with the other groupings. You know what I mean? It's complicated. They have a way of working it out, and these are all musicians mostly booking these gigs, not agents.
Oh.
Big networks. And some promoters, a few, and in Japan you cannot really go to Japan without a good promoter. You need a promoter for there. The language thing is just too difficult.
Oh.
So Japan always a promoter, Europe not necessarily. The musicians book it. But they are 2 years apart, the tours.
So on the lighter side, did you have to buy new pots and pans for your...
Brian said to me yesterday, he said, if you continue with this, you really need new pans. I mean, I'm looking at them, they're really old, and and I'm trying not to show some of the baking trays that have, I mean, who goes out and buys baking trays? We make do, right? You make do with everything,
I think it makes it more, you can do this at home too.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, exactly. It's, I did want to focus some of the recipes on that. I mean, the second one was 4 ingredients. The next one is they're pretty simple, I guess. And you don't have to do, like the last one, the one last night, what was it? Chicken schnitzel. You don't have to do the salad. You don't have to do the potato. You know what I mean? You can kind of just do what you want of it, but.
You can plug in the side people.
Yeah, exactly. You can choose your side musicians.
Do you have anything you do when you start to get down?
That's a very good question. I talk to musicians, I talk to friends, I talk to my parents, I talk to my sister, I talk to my husband a lot, I talk it through, and I try to figure out I actually feel that I had to grieve the loss of the year's work. Basically, it's going to be, what it comes down to is the rest of the year's work. It was so much work to put it together. Plane tickets. So the first few weeks of the quarantine were me on the phone to United, trying to recoup what I could, because I paid out a lot in air tickets and they weren't reimbursing them. And I'm saying, but the flights are canceled. Can't you just reimburse me the ticket or that was difficult. And it was a combination of trying to figure out the unemployment, trying to see if there's any grants or, trying to figure all these things out. And it was all at once. And it left me depressed because I didn't get anywhere, basically. I just got nowhere. And it was wasted hours, it felt like. Hours and hours on the phone. And it was, that got me down. That really got me down. And it got most musicians down because if you looked on Facebook, if you talked to people, it was the same story. What are we going to do? This is bad.
I think I may have been mistaken assuming that the people booking you would provide you with the airfare, pay for those tickets themselves.
Yes. I've been booking them because, I'm trying to get, I have pretty good standing with United. So I was trying to get United or United affiliated flights.
Mm-hmm.
I always get compensated when I do the gig.
Right.
So when the tour happens, here's your money and here's your flight money, But you have to kind of book, you have to buy the trips in advance. And most people now, in the old days, people always bought your flights. But in the last couple of years, people are saying, try to get a flight around X amount,
Nice.
or yeah, yeah. Or people know me, they know I'm not going to be booking a business class flight or a seat, or people know that I'm trying to get something on United or something else that is comparable and fair. And if it's summertime, you got to kind of get them a little earlier, because summertime flights, especially to Europe, used to be very expensive. So sometimes that's too, yeah, it's a negotiation, well, that's too high, see if you can go on a budget airline this time. It's a lot of thought and process that goes into getting the right flight.
Yeah.
I can't always get a direct, but yeah. So that's the thing. Once you do the tour, you're reimbursed.
Right.
So that was the insult. That was a little bit of insult to injury, because it was like, well, the airlines, you're getting some money from the federal government. Can't you just, reimburse us our flight? Doesn't always work the way you want it to. That's the lesson of all this.
Right. Yes. Well, I appreciate your time, Nikki, and you've given us a lot of valuable information, I think.
So
People are going to be um, writing papers, and just like they did with Katrina in New Orleans, people studied the
that's
effects of that. So I'm sure we'll be doing that.
yes.
You know,
Yes, oh, definitely. Like shoulda, woulda, coulda. There's going to be a lot of talk for months and years about this.
right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And you can't slow down your schedule until we have you back at Hamilton.
Ah, that was one of the greatest gigs up there. Really, always fun, and yeah, I've been coming up there for a long time, it seems. So thank you.
Okay, you take care and keep jamming in the kitchen.
We'll do a couple more episodes and then we'll reassess. Because it does take up a lot of a time in the editing process,
Right,
and but it's been a lot of fun.
right. Okay.
Yeah.
Enjoyed reconnecting with you.
Yes, me too. I did too. Thank you very much. Thanks for the opportunity.
Right, thanks a lot. Bye.
Bye bye. See you.